Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order tonight. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
We have one. There's a special meeting agenda, so we will add that item as item 6.4 on the regular agenda.
Any other changes, council? We have approval of the agenda. Council?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Mayor Horn.
And I vote aye. Okay, next item we've got is item number 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. We have 4 items. The first one is presentation on proposed solar facility at the old asbestos Superfund site by Cultivate Power.
Hi, everyone, council members. My name's Lucas Adams. I am a development manager for Cultivate Power. Came out here to present on a potential site at the old Superfund site along Elm Avenue. My colleague Dewey is joining us by Zoom. Are you there, Dewey?
Yes.
Yeah. I can go ahead and get started though. So this is an agenda. I'll give an overview of Cultivate Power and what we do, what our proposed project is, and the letter of intent that we're proposing to the city, an idea for potentially expanding the project, a general development timeline, what sort of benefits we think that it'll bring to the city of Coalinga, and kind of the next steps of what a ground lease agreement will look like. So Cultivate Power is, we're kind of a solar startup company. We have a focus on what's called community solar, which is kind of developing in a lot of different states right now. California is putting together its own community solar program, and the concept behind it is basically build solar farms where the kind of benefits of solar farm is applying these bill credits to low-income customers and other customers and people who can't develop or put solar on their own houses and stuff like that. We focus on project development from origination, so siting projects to the start of construction, where we will typically sell the project to a construction developing firm. We have a big mission of partnering with communities and giving local community benefits, and one of our key things of our business is to basically donate a portion of our proceeds of our profits to the communities, whether it be like recidivism funds or any other sort of community engagement. And we lease land, and we basically go through all the diligence processes of getting permits, of doing all the zoning, and getting the contracts and getting it ready to develop.
Lucas, can you hear me?
Oh, there's Dewey. Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I'm the senior director. I lead the West Market here for Cultivate Power. We were formed about a year ago, as Lucas said. Collectively, I think we have over 4 gigawatts of solar that has been developed and built in the ground. Me personally, I've done over 500 megawatts of projects of similar size and scope. And so, and previously I worked in transmission scale, large projects in California. And I joined this firm, and I think Lucas would say the same thing, because we are uniquely focused on trying to deploy capital quickly for projects that have benefits for more than just the owners and more than just the people that have the lease interest that we have the land with. And so when we say that we are seeking to, deploy a portion of profitability to the local funds, that's a mandate that we have, where a percentage of the profitability has to go to things like preventing recidivism, job training. We have a community benefits plan that incorporates several other key aspects that we think are of interest in non-controversial education, health, children's health. And so while we're presenting to you in the context, and Lucas would be doing the majority of the presenting, while we're presenting to you in the context of seeking to use this existing old asbestos site, dump site for solar, the potential benefits to the community are much larger than just the project, its location itself. So with that, I'll hand it back to Lucas.
Yeah, and just touch on that last point. It says why landfills, and we typically work with like farmers and do solar farms, and a lot of comments we get is, why are you putting solar on farmland? Why don't you go build it on a dump somewhere? So that's what we're trying to do, put our money where their mouth is. And so we went around to different municipalities and tried to look for city-owned dumps, and you guys were the first ones that we got a relationship with, so we're trying to move forward with it. So this is a picture of the site. I'm sure you guys all know it. It's about a 2-acre property near West Elm and Lucille. It's a capped solid waste landfill. It's fence perimeter. It's kind of overlain between 2 parcels that we believe are owned by the city, or it was listed as a redevelopment agency. I don't know how that's organized now, but we're focusing on this landfill plot. It's zoned for light manufacturing and business, which seems to have solar as an allowable use. And it's actually relatively close to the Coalinga #1 substation. So it'll be kind of there's a pole. I don't know if you can see it really tiny. There's a pole right nearby it, which would make it really easy to connect to. So it's actually a really nice spot to develop a solar plant. This was some background by our environmental expert. She kind of looked at the covenant that Sean passed along to us, what the deal with the site was, and kind of what's under it. It seems to be Superfund from the old asbestos mine. Of course, we will be doing our own diligence to kind of figuring out what's under there and what the sort of contamination is and what we need to do with that. We did want to give some background here that based on the Inflation Reduction Act, there is incentives for solar companies to build on these brownfields, develop projects in the form of an investment tax credit bonus. So we also have an incentive to build out here, but generally it's kind of a win-win situation. And the EPA themselves has their own kind of guidebook of how to build these solar facilities on solid waste landfills, and they really recommend it because it's a really good use for the land that would otherwise just kind of be sitting there. And of course, we'll work with the city on specific construction requirements and cap landfill and whatever kind of safety measures that we need to follow to make it when we're planning the site. And we are also interested in, as you can see, our view of the site is kind of overlapping these parcels. We noticed 2 parcel numbers ending in 58 and 59. So we are interested in talking to the city about potentially expanding if we could have a little bit more land to build a bigger project, or what's going on with that land there. I will present on the next slide what the LOI, what the lease terms would look like just for the landfill site, but we are interested in seeing if we can have a little bit more land to build a larger project, because that obviously makes it more profitable for us, but also for you guys. And then we're also curious about some of the surrounding land. We saw some land that was marked for Chevron over to the east. I guess it's outside the city limits of Coalinga, but we're curious about if you guys have any connections there. So this is an overview of the commercial terms for just the landfill site. We're offering $25,000 per year. It comes with a 2% annual escalator commencing on the 5th anniversary. It's a biannual payment schedule. And then the term itself is basically 34 years and 11 months. And the reason for this is to avoid it being treated as a sale under California tax law. So the initial term is roughly 20 years, and then there's 3 5-year extensions in it. When we sign the lease, we would have a 5-year diligence period, and that period is basically there to give us time to perform studies and make sure, both like environmental studies to see that the land is good to build on, getting all our permits and zoning, and also to run interconnection studies, in this case with PG&E, to make sure that we can actually connect to their grid. And that takes a long time, you know, it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years sometimes, so we need enough time to be able to do that before we commit to the full lease term. And then we did want to point out, Sean, I brought this up, we do have a confidentiality clause in our lease. This would comply with the Public Records Act or whatever law, so he did was concerned about that, so we will comply with any laws on that front. And then the full lease itself will address, it's a big 40-page lease, so it'll address a lot of other concerns and questions, such as decommissioning, site access, existing covenants, landlord and tenant protections. There's a lot more clauses, and that will come after the LOI. In terms of the general timing of what this will look like, this is kind of, this is that kind of best case scenario. So we would sign the lease, and then we would enter a negotiation period where we negotiate all the terms. And then once all the terms, once we're happy with that and we have the lease signed, in California, we do need site control. We need to have a signed lease in order to start the process with the utility in order to do the studies. So that's kind of our main goal. And then once we have the lease signed, we kick off the studies, the interconnection studies, environmental studies, and counting and permitting. The environmental studies themselves, there's a lot to do. Typically, it's a pretty quick process, especially for what this would kind of be a smaller project. But because it's a dump, there's going to be extra studies. So we have things like a wetland delineation, a phase 1 environmental site assessment, a phase 2 environmental site assessment, which is kind of an extra step to see how bad contamination is and what sort of remediation steps we need to take. And then a threatened and endangered species assessment. We do all these steps for financial partners to de-risk the project and also to limit liability for the landowner, in this case the city, and the developer. And then as we get further along, we'll start doing site design with an EPC firm, engineering firm that will actually do the design and figure out offtake agreements, project financing, and then finally get into construction, procurement. And this is kind of a general...
May.
Yes, go ahead.
Just in terms of what we're thinking for this site, there are lots of large and small utility scale projects where the panels are typically 14 feet high. And that is not what we're actually envisioning for this. We're planning on, given the size of the parcel, we're planning on using some type, we don't know the exact vendor yet, but some type of high density racking that sits relatively low to the ground. So it would be roughly 3 to 4 feet. The panels would not be on trackers. It would just be, it almost looks like a blanket of panels on the ground. And so I just thought that was worth noting because people are often wondering what it's going to look like, particularly given the height of a landfill.
Yeah, so what Dewey's imagining, it's kind of like almost like a sawtooth pattern of solar panels, and they sit on top of these kind of metal pegs, so we don't go too deep in the ground, which will be pretty key here because we're not sure how deep we can go in the ground before we hit the cap. So that'll be important, but it also kind of lets us maximize the area of solar we can get. And for this site, this 2-acre site, we're probably imagining about 500 kilowatts a megawatt, which is roughly enough to power like 100 to 150 homes, which is nice. Okay, and then in terms of project benefits, why we're excited about this, it's, for one, it's a very productive use of the land. It has development land use restrictions. You know, it's a dump and there's not much you can do to it. You can't really dig very deep. So even within solar, like, we have to kind of have a special way of treating it, and you know, putting solar on a dump is a really good use of the land. It's good revenue generation for the city of Coalinga. You know, it's 35 years of lease payments for land that's kind of sitting there being a dump anyway. It's locally generated energy, and you know, would be part of this community solar program that is, you know, coming out in California. And you know, the way the program is structured is so that these subscribers receive bill credits on their electricity bill from power produced by the solar plant. In California, the mandate will be, it has to be at least 51% low and moderate income customers. And even the current community solar programs that do exist, a lot of them will be focused on, you know, being local generation. So there's a high chance that it will, you know, go towards local low-income customers. And that's kind of the goal with this community solar, and it being kind of locally sited generation. And then this project will
also has the benefit, Lucas, of you know, DG projects, unlike their utility scale counterparts, provide significant benefits to the grid, and that you avoid or defer potential transmission investments that are more unsightly, more costly, more time consuming. And so enhance the upgrades that we would have to build to connect to the point of interconnection, which is the pole that Lucas pointed at. You know, that would benefit the grid in the local area and improve the reliability and resilience of the grid in the area.
And the last thing is that, you know, it's a quiet, low maintenance development process. It's environmentally safe, pollution free. You know, it's green energy, and also there is more revenue generation in terms of property tax for the community and for the city of Coalinga. In terms of next steps, do you want to talk about this, Dewey?
Sure. So our hope is that we can come to agreement on terms in the letter of intent. You know, in short order. It's pretty much a non-binding 2-page document. The only thing that is binding, which we need in order to make further investment and do due diligence on our end, including preparing the full lease, is that there's an exclusivity provision granted in that letter of intent, meaning you're not going to pull the rug out from under us. I believe it's 120 days. And so that enables us to have confidence that if we begin investing and having legal counsel review the environmental covenants and incorporating them into our form lease, we'll have a line of sight to reaching a full lease in some period of time. The first due diligence payments isn't received until the lease agreement is executed, and then, you know, probably within the first 2 months we would submit an interconnection request to the utility, and we would typically wait for the initial results of that first study, which takes about 60 calendar days to make sure that the project is viable, which our internal diligence and analysis indicates that it is, but you know, PG&E can always come back and say something different. And once we get a viable determination from PG&E, we would then begin on the ground field work to de-risk the site, as Lucas said. And our primary focus here would be doing a preliminary phase 1 ESA and then doing a phase 2 ESA to, as he said, test for where potential contamination is and the need for remediation or specific health and safety plans to address any potential asbestos leakage or anything of that nature. And we would also, you know, begin title review and make sure that we're complying with both the EPA federal guidance and the existing covenants that the parcel that are already encumbered on the parcel. So in an ideal world, you know, on our end, we recognize that municipalities can't move as quickly as private landowners. That's totally understandable. But in an ideal world, we would like a letter of intent, you know, in the near future. Doesn't have to be today. And then our hope would be that we could potentially negotiate the lease agreement over the next 3 to 6 months. but open to feedback on those points because every municipality is different.
All right, and I mean, that pretty much concludes our presentation to you guys. Is there any questions I can take?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I'll try to be quick. Okay, the funds for this, who receives the funds? You were saying that you take a portion of the funds and you donate it or give it back to the city?
So in terms of our local benefits, we have 3 to 4 statewide partners, which are our fallbacks if we can't find local benefit organizations that we can work with. It's early days for us in California, and so because we don't know exactly which of our projects are going to come to fruition, it's difficult to develop local partners. But things that we've thought about are, wounded warriors, education, grants to local community colleges, that kind of thing. We could certainly have the go-to programs that are of particular interest to the city. And, were we to sign the LOI, we would have frank and hopefully honest conversations about where you think that those dollars should flow. We're open to ideas is the short answer.
All right. I've got more questions, but I think it'd be easier. Is there any way that we can get some information, like statistics or whatever, on previous projects that you guys have done, so we can kind of have a good idea of how it's going to work?
So our company, most of our prior experiences was done at previous companies. This is a startup. We've been in existence for about a year, and we just sold our first few projects in another market, and anticipate selling 12 projects by the end of this year, which is a pretty remarkable growth path for solar development, which typically takes 3 to 5 years. We did it in a year in that market. But unfortunately, there aren't a lot of success stories of projects at this company in California. You kind of have to, either buy what we're selling in terms of past experience or say, thanks, but no thanks, which is hopefully not what you say, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
Yeah. That's understandable. Thank you. Council have any questions? I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're free to take any questions offline too. I'll pass along our info if any of the councilmen have specific questions.
Okay, that'll work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, next we have presentation of proposed solar facility at Jane and Alpine by Synergy Power.
Actually, Bill, our company principal, is going to give the discussion details, but thanks
Yes,
for letting us present.
hi
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you for having us. You guys are in a very envious position in that the city has multiple locations.
Excuse me,
You know, we don't
excuse me.
do that.
Can I have you hold for a second? Is there any way we can
Yes.
turn the volume up so we can hear him a little better?
One second.
Hello, is that better or?
Little bit more if possible. I think we might be able to get it on
Hello?
our side with the soundboard. Larry, are you
Yeah.
back there?
Yep, let's try this.
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear us better now?
It's about the same. We can hear you. It's just real faint. It's not extremely
faint?
loud. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I can try to talk louder. Is that better?
Yeah, that would help. Thank you.
Okay. All right. City council members, thank you for entertaining time with us. And we see, obviously, you have a lot of choices, and we appreciate the fact that you're also considering our proposal. My name is Bill Pham. I'm one of the principals at Synergy. We've been around for about 15 years, and our core team has pretty much stayed with us throughout, which is about, I'd say, a core team of about 25 people, and now we're up to about 70 plus people at Synergy. Mika is also present. He is one of our key outreach origination people. He initially reached out to your city, and we're thrilled that you guys are at least open to entertaining more solar in Coalinga. So with that, maybe I can throw up our slides, and hopefully this will work. Let me see. Oh, I don't know if there's, oh, here, share screen. All right. Do you see the slides that?
Yeah, we can see the slides.
On the screen? Okay, let me start from the beginning. So this is Synergy. The photo you see is actually a 13 megawatt project that we did at Chevron's Richmond facility for the benefit of Marin Clean Energy. They're one of the large CCAs in California, and Chevron was nice enough. They worked out an arrangement with that CCA and Synergy to basically put this large project, 13 megawatts, on their landfill at their large refinery in Richmond, California, Northern California. And so we've done quite a bit in our 15-year history of working with local communities, organizations, municipalities to get projects done that oftentimes can be very challenging, right? So this is actually on a wastewater landfill at the Richmond refinery. And we know that Chevron is very active in Coalinga as well, right? I think they're one of your largest employers in the city. So our mission is to spread the economic benefits of clean energy projects to local communities. And we definitely do that with action. You know, to date, we've donated and we have commitments out for over $10 million of contributions to, whether it's nonprofits or oftentimes it's contributions directly to the local municipalities that we work with. And we're grounded by a very deep understanding of what it takes in power development to make sure we deliver on our projects for the benefit of local communities and the partners that we have responsibilities to. Again, company overview, we've been around for about 15 years, and we're very integrated, meaning we do the outreach, the data analysis, the mapping, the development, the engineering, and we also build and finance and maintain a good number of our projects. Over 400 projects to date, equaling about 400 megawatts, over 400 megawatts across about maybe 12 states now. And we have, because of our track record, we have bonding capacity of about $200 million with several of the large sureties in the business. The picture you see on the right is one of the largest airport projects that we did for Indianapolis. If you ever fly into that airport in Indiana, you would see this project. It's about 25 megawatts at the end of one of the runways of Indianapolis Airport. Here's where we're currently active in the US. We've built projects in about 12 states, but we're currently active in about 7 states. And California is our home state. Our back office is in Southern California, San Diego County, but we have 2 other offices in California, one in Central Valley in Merced, and one in Orange County. Here's a letter representing our bonding capacity of up to $200 million per year of bondable projects. And I won't get into this. It sounds like you probably already know how community solar works, right? The developer will develop, build, maintain a solar project, sending that solar generation to the grid, and the utility has to act as the intermediary to give electric bill credits to subscribers that we secure for the project we build. And it's all done virtually, but it's a very attractive program. It's very active in probably at least a dozen states now, have very successful community solar programs. And the credits will range, the billing credits will range between 10 to maybe up to 30%. We try to start at least 20%. And for low income residents, we push it up to 30% of savings. This is just a slide on the basics of the California program. It was AB 2316, was signed into law last year, and it created the statewide template for community solar in California. And the program's currently set to open mid 2024. Knowing California, it could get delayed a little bit, but everyone's pretty excited that the program's going to come out in 2024. To have the best chance at getting into the program, because these programs are so popular that on day one of opening, it's like Black Friday outside of a Best Buy store, right? You've got a lot of projects lined up, and so you want to work with the most capable teams and that can get the approvals, zoning approval, environmental approvals, and the interconnections completed, because that tends to look very favorably upon when the program gets too many applicants and they have to make some selection, right? They tend to select the projects that are furthest along, that have the least risk of failure. Here's an example of what we would typically target, maybe about a 25% bill credit. I mentioned earlier, our range is 20 to 30%. On average, we'll try to target 25% bill credit. And if you look at the upper right-hand corner, currently the residential tier 1 rate in PG&E is about 35 cents per kilowatt hour for the energy rate. So if you basically just take 25% off of that rate, and if we fill up all of one project that is about 7 megawatts DC and 5 megawatts AC, then the electric bill savings per year on average at 25% savings for all of the subscribers would add up to roughly over $1.2 million per year. And so it's a pretty significant savings. And as the gentleman at Cultivate Power indicated, this program does favor low income. So majority of the subscribers on these projects have to qualify as low income. So project benefits and next steps, real briefly, the obvious benefits are the environmental benefits of generating clean energy locally. Each megawatt of power produced from a project will power roughly about 150 homes. I think we discussed with your folks the rough lease payments, to the extent that the city is the landowner of the Jane location, the site that's close to the state prison. These are fairly standard lease arrangements. For us, we do it for 20 years, with the lease being extendable 2 times at our option for 10 years each. So at most, maybe 40 years to basically be consistent with the life of the system. And then other community benefits, we talk about the 25% electric bill savings for, it could be Coalinga municipal meters, it could be residents within Coalinga, but again, majority of the project subscribers must be qualified as low income. Our typical one-time contribution for projects up to 5 megawatts AC is between $100,000 to $400,000 to our local partner, which in this case would be the city. And the reason why we have a range is it's going to be based on the final size that we can get through interconnection and the cost, right? If it's a tough site that requires a lot of technical customization, then the cost to build goes up. And typically that's payable 50% when we start construction and 50% when we complete construction. Other community benefits would be working locally with your team, perhaps, for local workforce training, securing subscribers, knowing, getting the outreach message out that they can subscribe with no money down and receive billing credits to help them save on their PG&E bills. And we can discuss also potential for a solar education element locally. Next steps, very similar to the previous gentleman, what they said is if the city could approve and sign a very short lease option, our lease option is limited to about 1 page. And that's really needed because we cannot file for interconnection until we have site control. And that gives us site control to file for interconnection. Because we're integrated, we can file usually within 2 weeks. And for us, the interconnection technical viability is the most important step, because if there's no more capacity on the local circuit or substation, then the project cannot move forward. Once we have technical viability established with the interconnection, then we would further develop the site and enter into a more fulsome lease with the city. That's basically it. Here's just a rough preliminary site plan of the site that the city owns, that's about 2 parcels away from the state prison. And here are a couple of sample projects that we built in the Central Valley. This one was for another oil producer, E&B Natural Resources. It was 23 megawatts in Kern County. And this is a project we built again on Chevron's Superfund site in Ventura, and it was about 3.5 megawatts that the county of Ventura was the purchaser of the power. That's all we had for our brief overview, and we welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Yeah, I got a quick question. I don't know if you're able to give me an answer or not. How low is low income for you? What's your guys' numbers you use?
Yeah, actually, low income is pretty much established by the state and the federal level, right? I forget the exact rule, but it's roughly something along the lines. I have a map. Let me see if I can put it up of what constitutes. It's a pretty standard. Here's our low income map. And it just follows it by tract. It's usually if you're below the average of 80% of the household, something along that nature, sir. I can look it up. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's a pretty standard definition that's used by the state of California and at the federal level. We can follow up with the exact qualification for you.
Yeah, that'll work. We'll reach out to you, and then that way we can because I've got a few more questions I'd like to ask. So I'll get with you through email or through the city manager.
Yeah, there are clear definitions of what constitutes low income, and we'll forward that to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council have any more questions? None? Okay, thank you for your time.
All right. That's it. Thank you for having us, and we hope to follow up. We're excited for the chance to work with the city.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, our next item is presentation of Police Department mid-year report by Chief Garza.
Right. Just need some help. The full, what about the notes? Can you do that?
The notes won't be up there.
All right, okay. All right, see if it works. Oh, good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, staff, and community. This report is a mid-year report on Coalinga Police Department's efforts or continued efforts in meeting our goals in reducing crime, leading and building the department, and building community trust. Better see the numbers here, 17%. If you recall, Council, we ended 2022 with an increase of 17% of overall crime, with a specific increase in violent crime of robberies and assaults. The first 2 months, January and February, we had 4 gang-related shootings with 2 gang members shot multiple times. At that time, it didn't seem violent crime was going to decrease, but there was a lot of great teamwork done by our officers in solving these shootings, from the initial sergeants and officers who responded to the shootings, to those officers like Officer Cody Cease. We had Sergeant Sparks, Sergeant Henderson, that were pulled from patrol temporarily under the supervision of Sergeant Diaz to investigate these shootings. And these 3 officers, including Sergeant Diaz, they really did an outstanding job, wrote a lot of search warrants. Under the command of Commander Young, he led the operation in serving 9 search warrants and involving these individuals that were arrested for the shootings. By taking these 4 gang members in custody and off the streets of Coalinga, we sent a loud message to the other gang members. In fact, we haven't had a gang shooting in over 4 months. Now, I don't want to jinx it, but this is great news because it's really had a significant impact in reducing our violent crime. Because if you see here, currently from January to the end of June, we have a 27% decrease in overall crime and significant decrease in violent assaults and burglaries, which is a huge, huge difference, which equates to having 49 less victims this year to date compared to last year to date, to this date. So that's a big difference. Just an update on our community video policing program to help the department in deterring crime and assist in investigating crime with grant funding. We now have 5 of the 10 camera locations up in the city, which means we have a total of 29 views, including 12 are license plate captures. We are currently working with Caltrans in the application process for installing the remaining cameras, and which is going to take a while, probably several months to get that process, but we're working on it. And once we have all 10 cameras, then I'll be putting out a notice out to the community explaining the community video policing program. In leading and building the department, Council, in the new budget, FY 2023 to 24, I just want to thank you for your support in improving the additional officer along with additional dispatcher. Once we have these positions filled, it would bring the department to 22 sworn officers and 5 dispatchers. Also, we recently submitted a retail theft grant. We have 80 plus law enforcement agencies that are competing for this grant, But if awarded this grant in September, it would add additional 2 officers to the department, along with the vehicles and additional cameras. And building community trust. So far this year, we've positively engaged the community at numerous events such as Mardi Gras, Easter Egg Hunt, Annual Horn-Toad Parade and Carnival, and National Night Out. I just want to thank the city manager for taking the lead on this National Night Out, the assistance of agencies, organizations, vendors, and the mayor's DJ. The National Night Out this year was a success. And we can't forget the dunking of our first responders and our community leaders that you see here. If you can recognize the faces, we have Scott in one corner here and Commander in the center, and we have our chief. So again, it was a great event. The kids love dunking, all the volunteers, so we thank you for that. And it was just an awesome event. So it was great. And I just want to close thanking Commander Young, the sergeants, the officers, the non-sworn personnel in our department, because they've been doing an awesome job every day in keeping our community safe and engaging the community. So you got a good group of officers and non-sworn that work in the police departments. They're just doing an awesome job. So thank you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Council, have any questions?
I have a question. So, first up, I want to thank all of the officers for their hard work, especially, addressing the gang problems and things that we have here. I know one of the other issues that some of it's not in our control is conviction rates. So I see a lot of people that follow these cases, and we want to know, what is our conviction rates on these type of things? You showed the faces up there.
Right.
People that shoot people, people that commit murder, people that try to commit murder. How many of those people end up in prison?
Currently, there's 4 individuals. They're all in custody. The 3 went on the Keck Park shooting. The main shooter got 10 years. The other 2 got 5 years. And the one at the Amodaco shooting is currently in court process. But they're off the streets.
Thank you.
So, again, very violent crime, but when you look at misdemeanors and other type of crimes, that might be different.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, next is our awards, presentations. Nope, wrong one. Citizens' comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item within the jurisdiction of the council. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern, identify themselves, and use the microphone. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes in accordance with state open meeting laws. No action will be taken by the city council this evening, and all items will be referred to staff for a follow-up and a report. Citizens' comments submitted in writing to the city clerk by 5 p.m. on the day of the city council meeting shall be distributed to all of city council and included into the record. However, they will not be read. We have anybody who wants to make a comment? Scott?
Scott Netherton, 122 West Elm Avenue. As Chief said, I'd like to begin by congratulating Marissa, her staff, the Public Works for an incredible event this last Tuesday. A lot of kids got supplies they needed that they wouldn't have otherwise, and you all deserve a big round of applause. That being said, I'm here today not in my normal capacity, but as a business owner. As a lot of you probably are aware, we lost yet another business in our community. We've had tire shops leave, we've had restaurants leave, we've had, the list goes on and on. These are tax generating businesses that we're losing. And I spoke with the gentleman personally yesterday, and his biggest issue was all of the online sales that are being done that aren't following the same rules that we're required to do. As a theater owner, I have to have a business license. I have to have a seller's permit. I have to have a health inspection report. All of these things I have to have. The city's bent over backwards for people. You're now offering business license for the first year at no charge. You know, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we have one flower shop left here in town. Yet that relies on Mother's Day, Valentine's, graduation to keep their doors open. Yet every Valentine's Day, there's 10 pop-ups on every corner selling things that don't have business license, that don't have a seller's permit probably. I don't know, but are we even looking into that? And I can't just pick on those because I know those people are trying to make a living. But I also, have heard rumors that we have not one or two, but many corporations in town that are not following the rules either. They don't have business license. And I understand, what can we do? Fine them? We sure don't want them to leave. We need their jobs. We need their tax revenue. But we can't keep lowering our standards. They lower them in the schools. They lower them in college to get in. We can't keep doing that. DC, Sacramento may want to say that, the economy's great, but I'm here to tell you it sucks. I just filed quarterly 4 days ago. April, May, June, and for me, I'm down 54% from where I was last year, those same 3 months. So I know it's tough. I know these people are trying to make a living and feed their families, and I'm getting bashed because of a post I made on Facebook explaining this to people, and they're saying, well, you're trying to take away the way they feed their family. Well, no, but tell the gentleman that just lost everything he invested that he's out looking for a job right now. Okay? I don't know what the answer is, but you are our leaders, so I'm coming to you to see what we can do. I don't know if it's code enforcement, again, I'm not saying they need to be shut down. Everybody we want to be able to do it, but they should have to follow the same rules that we do. What's fair is fair. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Robert Lozano, 583 Buckeye Springs. Been in the community for over 20 years. Correctional sergeant for Avenal State Prison for over 27 years. I wasn't expected to be here today. It's just something that popped up. I got my business license yesterday, got permitted to do a vendor in front of the fitness lab. And then today I got a call that they got cited for that. How are they gonna get cited when I got issued a business license?
So this comment period is just to make comments. So if you ask questions, they're not generally answered, but when Sean does the public hearing, I'll step down and answer your questions for you, but nobody got cited today.
I understand the comments that were made earlier, and I agree of the businesses here in town. We're just trying to make a living too as well. Actually, I have an appointment to get my process of getting the license for here in Kalinga, the annual license. I just learned about it the day of. I have an appointment Monday for Fresno County. I'm trying to go about it the right way, but I was permitted to sell that day. So I don't think it's fair that the business owner got the citation.
I have the notice here of the violation.
Yeah, that's not a citation. It was informing them that they need to obtain a temporary use permit, but like I said, I'll talk to you about it as soon as Sean starts the public hearing.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Council? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, public hearings. First item up is consideration and approval of resolution number 4170, tentative partial map 22-02, southeast corner of Elm Avenue, South Route 198, and El Rancho Boulevard. Sean.
Thank you. Mayor and council, tonight, staff is recommending approval of Resolution 4170, approving a tentative parcel map to subdivide APN 070-100-21S into 4 commercially zoned parcels. That would be in conformance with the city's general plan. In March of 2023, the city accepted for processing an application to subdivide the existing 7.69 acre property located between El Rancho and Phelps Avenue on Elm Avenue into 4 parcels. The purpose of the request was to subdivide the parcel to allow for the property owner to sell the commercial parcels of land to prospective commercial developers that would be consistent with the Subdivision Map Act. The project is currently designated as commercial land by the Coalinga General Plan and zoned as general commercial. So under this particular project, the purpose of the applicant's request is to subdivide this, as I mentioned earlier. It is within the city limits of Coalinga, and to put this into 4 commercially zoned parcels for intended development for future commercial. The applicant does not include any land use entitlements, so this application is merely the subdivision of the existing parcel into 4. And so there's any future permit or proposed use of the property or any of these properties would require future land use entitlements, which would be basically separate applications, future studies, environmental review, including consultation with Caltrans for access on the state highway. So essentially, these parcels will still be connected in a sense. There'll be CCNRs that will be recorded on this map to ensure that the parcels are developed cohesively, not as individual independent parcels. Because especially with the history we've had with Caltrans is not going to allow 4 driveways off that stretch of Elm. It may be 1. And so there will be cross-access agreements, drainage easements, as well as for all the other utilities, including our transitional standards, because the east portion of that is all residential. And so there'll be transitional standards related to this project as well. So with that, it's kind of a brief presentation, but essentially there's no project proposed. It's a matter of essentially subdividing these into 4 parcels. Any questions from the council?
I have a question. So this isn't changing the zoning. The zoning will stay the same. It's already zoned for this use, correct?
Yes, all the zoning is remaining the same. There's no rezone, general plan amendment, or anything like that.
And so it didn't require letters or anything like that to go out to the
There
residents?
were actual letters that sent out.
Were letters sent
So
out.
a parcel map does require a public hearing.
Okay.
So there was public hearing notices sent out, and in order to be efficient, we sent out a joint public hearing notice that covered both the planning commission meeting that was held last week and then the council meeting for tonight, as they were both public hearings. And just to add to that is the planning commission did have a public hearing on, I think it was, do I have it on here? I don't know if I have the date. It was last Tuesday on 25th, and they recommended approval to the council.
Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public, if the public has any questions. Okay, at this time, go ahead and close this item. Council, what would you guys like to do? Does council have
As
any
long as they
questions?
follow the, set rules and whatever goes in there doesn't disturb the neighborhood and they follow all the city's rules, I think it's all
Yeah,
right.
any future project would have to go through a normal land use process as in any other project.
All right. Yes,
All right, I'll motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Aye.
Mayor Horn.
And I vote aye. Okay, item number 2, consideration and approval of resolution number 4171 and combined development application CDA 22-02-256 East Polk Street. Sean.
Thank you. Tonight, staff is seeking approval of a combined development application with conditions, which includes the approval of Resolution 4171, approving a general plan land use amendment from mixed-use commercial to commercial service, a site plan review application, conditional use permit application, and a notice of exemption pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act under Section 15301 for existing facilities, specifically for the proposed automotive repair facility at 256 East Polk Street. In addition, there's also, when it comes to council action on rezones have to be processed as an ordinance. So the second action is introducing and waiving the first reading of ordinance number 861, which officially amends the zoning map from mixed use to commercial for the parcels included in the application. So the city received an application from the applicant, Rito Gutierrez, for the general plan amendment rezone for APNs 083, 102, 06, 07, and 08. And it included the application for site plan review, conditional use permit, and environmental review specifically for 256 East Polk Street, which is APN 083, 102, 06. And that was to facilitate the opening of an automotive repair facility. The other APNs, in order for orderly zoning designations and not having these pockets of different zones, especially mixed use versus commercial, service commercial, is that the 3 parcels are being recommended to be rezoned rather than having mixed use in the middle. Because mixed use does allow for ancillary residential or accessory residential uses when a primary commercial use is in existence. And so to kind of put that right in the middle, it's more necessary to move that zoning because the zoning where the JR's auto is service commercial as well. So that's why 3 parcels are involved in this. The permitting of any kind of activity, especially related to the automotive repair, is specific to 256, which is essentially just the buildings that are on the screen to your far right of that red square. So when looking at these types of projects, we look at the general plan, making sure that the activities and the rezone, the general plan amendment, are consistent with the general plan. And when going through that, we have found that it is consistent with the general plan. We've identified some of the implementation measures and some of the policies in our general plan land use element that basically equates to that. In terms of conditional use permit and site plan review, there are certain commercial uses that are more intense or pose as possible impact to surrounding properties and are regulated through a conditional use permit where the uses require special considerations to ensure that they can be designed, located, and operated in a manner not to impact the surrounding properties. And that's basically when you look at the land use table, sometimes a use could be permitted by right, and then some have a CUP next to it, which requires, and that really looks at a case-by-case basis and looking at certain locations on where they're being proposed. So in terms of the components of the project, which is more specific to 256 East Polk Street, you can see the building that's on the far left of this facility, and that the hours of operation for this repair facility is going to be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with approximately 2 employees. The existing structure will be used, the 3,400 square foot will be used for office space and auto repair. 2,000 square feet will be used for the office space and 1,400 square feet will be used for the auto repair with 1 bay. The existing footprint of the structure will not be modified other than modifications to accommodate auto repair and occupancy in the office space. So no expansion of the existing building. In terms of access will, for the site, will be via the entrance on East Polk Street, And as a condition of approval, the existing driveway will be reduced to a standard commercial width of 27 feet to accommodate vehicular traffic. Currently, if you're familiar with the area, the driveway is a full width of the lot, which produces unsafe vehicular movements and backing into traffic if they're parked on the south side or the southwest corner of that property. In addition, the driveway located on East Valley will be required to be removed and constructed with new curb gutter and sidewalk. East Valley Street is just not wide enough, nor is it necessary to introduce commercial traffic to the residential street where there's sufficient on-site maneuvering to get vehicles out back onto Polk Street. In terms of utilities, existing utilities are available on this site. There's currently a hydrant on East Valley Street to accommodate the development. In terms of parking, the proposed site provides for 17 on-site parking spaces. However, as we went through the review, parking, the spot number 17 identified on the site plan will have to be removed to accommodate the 15-foot setback for the block wall off the back of the walk on Valley Street. In terms of the requirements for parking, they've far exceeded the requirements. Based on the parking standard between the office and the automotive repair, the requirement is only six parking spaces, and they're providing essentially 16. In terms of transitional standards, these are the standards when you have commercial development directly adjacent to a residential neighborhood, whether that be by a street, alley, or whether it actually shares a property line. And so the transitional standards must be applied to reduce the impact of the commercial development. And so essentially a solid masonry wall, no less than 6 feet, nor higher than 7, shall be erected along the property line, but since the district boundary is a street, it must be constructed along the street in the commercial district and shall be set back from the property line. So the setback for the development was established at 15 foot 6 inches to coincide with the existing block wall that's on the JR's automotive repair or automotive sales. And so they'll be providing that, including landscaping that setback behind the back of sidewalk and the block wall on Valley Street. And so lastly, in terms of public notification, this is a public hearing, so we do have to send out public hearing notices. So public hearing notices were sent out to all property owners within 300 feet of the boundaries of the entire project, including the parcels that are just changing zones. So it's 300 feet from there. As of today, we did not receive any comments from the public or any concerns on this particular project. In terms of environmental review, once approved, staff will submit a notice of exemption in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act under Section 15301 regarding existing facilities, that any potential impact related to this amendment and zone change has been potentially identified in the general plan master EIO, environmental impact report, and self-mitigated through the general plan policies. And so in the report, it shows there's several different findings that need to be identified when it comes to general plan amendments, rezones, site plan, and the conditional use permit. So with that, we have a copy of the resolution that staff is recommending and the Planning Commission as well from their July 25th meeting recommending approval, including conditions, as well as introducing and waiving the first reading of ordinance number 861. And if all approved, staff will bring back ordinance number 861 for a second reading and adoption at the next council meeting. So any questions?
I think at this time we'll open it up to the public, if there's any questions. Mary?
And also the applicant is here, so if you have any questions directed at the applicant, they're available as well.
All right.
Hi, Mary Jones. My question and concern is similar to what happened on the corner project when it was structured, whatever. Sorry, the word's gone. There was concern from residents on Valley about the wall and how that was going to be situated. So I want to know, are the new standards consistent with what was asked for the other wall? And secondly, will it be supervised so that it takes less than a year to have it conform? Because that was it was a real challenge to get, and I don't think the wall ever really truly met what was submitted, what was said would happen, complete with the, foliage and stuff.
So, yeah, so a condition on this particular project is to ensure that the block wall meets current city standards. So we have a standard for block walls, as well as the landscaping, and it is required as a condition to submit a full landscape plan for that setback area behind the back of the sidewalk and the
And you
wall.
guys make sure it happens.
Yes, so it'll be a condition of approval. So when these projects are proposed, we actually ensure that on the resolution, there's an attachment of conditions, and we make sure that all of those conditions are met before a business license is issued
Okay.
for them to operate.
And you said before that not increase traffic on Valley. So is that driveway exit there, is that not going to be used?
That's
or-
being removed.
Oh, it's being removed?
Yes, so as a condition, that will be removed. So
Okay.
a lot of times applicants will submit site plans or applications, but as staff, we try to move forward with projects as quickly as possible to get these before the council for approval. And when we can just condition it to remove that, there's no sense in the applicant spending additional time and money just to modify it so it
Sure,
shows it gone. We'll just condition it to ensure
Okay.
that it's been removed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I suggest on the conditions that this not become an auto storage yard or a salvage yard or a wrecking facility, that it doesn't get filled up with unregistered vehicles or out-of-date registered vehicles. Just that if this should turn into that kind of an operation, then there's a fire hazard, and I don't think we have the water flow to handle that kind of a crisis. Thank you.
And there's already a condition built into the on-site storage of vehicles in the conditions of approval.
Any other questions from citizens? Okay, seeing none, I do have a question. So the brick, is it a cinder block wall that they're proposing putting all the way around the entire
Not
facility?
all the way around, just along the transitional standard. So it's only on Valley Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Council?
So I have a comment. I remember I was on council when the wall that Mary is referring to kind of had an issue to begin with. But I went by there a couple days ago just to check on that wall because I knew this project was coming up. And looking at the wall, it looks safe and secure. And mainly for the residents, one of the biggest problems that I've heard was that driveway. And so I think that taking this driveway out and putting the wall across may actually be an improvement for the citizens over there. And I haven't heard any complaints. I know not everyone likes having, some kind of commercial activity near them, but I do think that it is consistent with the rest of the businesses that are there. Now, my question is, when you're rezoning the rest of the spots around it, is that going to affect any current use that's there?
There is no active use on any of the property right now. Once a use goes dormant, I guess you'd say, or no longer active for over a year, typically, especially if it's not permitted any longer, then it would lose its legal non-conforming status, and that would require them to come back to the council to request a reestablishment of that legal non-conforming use. But essentially, right now, there's no active use on this entire property on all three parcels. So this will establish occupancy for those two offices, but where it says the two existing buildings on the top part of your screen do not have active occupancies to those buildings. So any intended use in the future would require some type of land use approval depending on the intended use.
And this did go through the planning commission?
Yes.
And they
so-
gave the recommendation?
Yep, and they provided a recommendation to the council as well.
Okay, thank you.
I used to work on that lot, and that middle building is just a shed. It's not a real structure. So I don't know that it would be useful for anything.
Any other questions? We need to vote on this tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the resolution and to introduce and waive the first reading of ordinance, and I gotta remember this ordinance number 861? 861.
I'll make the motion to approve and to approve the ordinance as well.
And I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
I would.
Okay, we'll close our public hearings. Move on to our next item, consent calendar, item number 5. We have 16 items tonight. Are there any items that need to be pulled, discussed, tabled?
I'd like to pull items number 3 and 4 just for public benefit. I have a couple questions.
Any other items, council? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 5.3. Councilman Vosberg.
So I was just wondering if Chief Garza could give us a summary of this program and what the expansion of it means, and maybe we might have some questions after hearing that.
If I could just divert that to Commander Young. He wrote the staff report, did the report and research, so he'll probably give you a better presentation.
Good evening, council. So what was the question again? Just the basic overview of the program itself?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking like at a summary of, I don't know if I was on council when they did the drone program to begin with, so kind of a summary of what the drone program is, and then what adding this next drone would do for the department.
Okay. We had purchased the drone back in 2020, I believe, correct? 21? Us and the fire department are splitting it currently. It allows us to get a good aerial overwatch of any structure fires. Fire department might be working. On the police department side, search warrants, so we have good overview of what's going on. Gives us a chance to kind of record the incident for training purposes, and then for area searches. So it helped us out on a suspect search a couple months ago, I believe it was, over off of Valley Street. With the expansion, technology's changed. So the newer drones will allow us to fly at nighttime, actually get crime scene mapping. So we're able to get our crime scene, set the drone, map it out for us, collisions 2D and 3D. So it'll save us time in the long run as far as having to draw up our factual diagrams. We're also wanting to basically put it on patrol, so to help us out in the city. Throughout the patrol shifts and whatnot, have it flying for a couple hours a day, just kind of giving us an overview of the city, what's going on, extra eyes on the streets to go with our camera program we've got right now. It'll help us when responding to priority calls for service, as long as we have a pilot on, get the drone there first, kind of give the officers eyes in the sky as to what we're walking into. At the same time, help out fire on their calls. So unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in structure fires. So if they're on one tied up with a drone already, they get another call, we've got a second drone to help out in the other fire.
So I've heard of people using the drones for, response, but are you planning on using this for like, hey, there hasn't been a crime and you're just going to fly it to look at the scenario?
As far as just patrol on purpose?
Yeah, are you
Or
going to
in
like
general?
patrol the city from a drone?
Yep.
That's
It'll
the
help.
goal? Is that kind of a new thing, or have you guys been doing that already?
No, it's gonna be a new thing. It's gonna be not taking away from guys on the street, it's giving us more eyes out there. So I'll be able to have one of my police techs sitting in the station and patrolling a certain area. So I've still got officers on patrol, now I've got an extra set of eyes actually helping out too. So we're not looking to cut patrol, looking to increase.
It's kind of like Fresno running a helicopter.
Pretty much, yeah. A lot quieter. And cheaper.
So what about like, I have a drone myself, and, if I fly it even, 400, 300 feet, what the license allows you to fly, you can see pretty much everything. So if you're flying, what's to keep the privacy of the citizens? Because there's really no way you're going to be able to block that stuff out. If you're looking for something, you're going to be able to see in people's backyards. You're going to be able to see, let's say somebody is naked sunbathing in their backyard. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And so what's going to keep you guys from being able to see private activity? I think people do have somewhat of a, you have right to privacy unless you're in the public. And if you're in your backyard, I believe that you feel like that you have the right to that privacy. And so I think that should be addressed. I think that's a major concern with me. I'm totally for the drone program to be used in order to go in response and to keep officers safe. But I do think that there is a privacy concern that maybe not being addressed in this, and I'd like to see that addressed. I'm not against purchasing the drone. I mean, I think it's a great thing. We need to give as many tools to our people as possible. But I do think that there needs to be some stringent requirements put in to where, for instance, as a private pilot, I'm not supposed to be driving over residents for those very reasons. And every time that I take off, I have to let the city or the nearest airport know when I'm doing that. And I'm guessing police departments don't have to do that. So you're going to be up there flying, and residents aren't going to know, and they're going to be doing their own things thinking they have the right to privacy when they don't. And it's not like a normal plane going over the top. I mean, the drones, literally from 300 or 400 feet, you can zoom in on a nickel and see the reading on it. It's that good. So I'd like to see some kind of something to do with privacy put into there to make sure that I'm not trying to take away your guys' ability to fight crime. Of course, I want that to happen. And any kind of use to do with like, hey, you have a shooter, you have a gang activity, you need to get that drone up. Absolutely, public safety of the officer is the most important thing. But this is a completely separate issue we're talking about. We're talking about now policing from the sky. And so I think those are two kind of separate issues. So I'd like to see something brought back with concerns of privacy. I don't have a problem approving this program, but I would like to add something in about privacy, and I don't know how that we would do that.
There are FAA requirements we are required to follow. So same as you, there are certain places we can and can't fly just in general. Comes to search warrants and authorizations from the court, that's where we get the exemptions from. But just in general, we still have the same requirements you guys have to follow.
So you won't be able to fly over a residential neighborhood then?
Not with the intention of specifically looking in backyards, no.
Well, yeah, but the intention of looking in backyards and doing it are two separate things. I have to follow those exact same rules, and unfortunately, when I zoom in, I actually stay on the outskirts of town because it's really hard to look without seeing everything else.
Right.
So I just think that something needs to be put into place to keep that from happening, because I don't think it's, it just, I think that that there should be an entire public thing on that, so that the public can understand really what's going on. Since this is something different, that's why I asked, hey, is this the same thing that we've been doing, or is this something different? So I'd like to see a kind of a public hearing so that the public, or maybe a workshop or something to where the public can come in and you guys can kind of talk about what is happening. Like I said, I'm not against the program. I think it's a great idea. Officer safety is the most important thing we got. And the drones really do help in those situations. You guys get a full-on aerial view. You can map out your stuff. The nighttime thing is a great thing. But I just want to see something that kind of a check and a balance on privacy. And that's really all I got.
Not a problem.
Any other questions?
I agree with him on that, on the privacy thing.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 5.4. Councilman Bosworth.
All right, so this is talking about the adoption of Measure C extension local transportation purposes pass-through projects and program funds. So my question or comment really isn't to do with this project, it's more along to do with Measure C in general. And so I was gonna ask Sean how much money we take in Measure C and how that Measure C money comes and what it's used for.
So Measure C has been around since 1986. It was a half-cent sales tax, basically countywide, that aimed at improving overall quality of transportation systems in the county, including the 15 cities within the county. In its first 20 years, it delivered about $1 billion in projects countywide. And with the success of that program, the voters actually renewed Measure C in November of '06 for an additional 20 years, which went from 2007 to 2027. So there is a big push right now to renew that because it is a substantial amount. When you look at even what the city of Coalinga receives, we receive about between 1.7 to 2% of the full allocation of Measure C. And that's based on per capita. There's a lot of analysis that goes into what the cities receive. And for us, it equates to about $650,000 a year in transportation funds. And it's broken up into 3 different funds. I think during meetings, you've heard me talk about flexible funding or ADA funding or street maintenance funding. And there's 3 different pots of money that we get. And basically it totals about $650,000. We use Measure C primarily here in Coalinga to augment our grant funds. So we'll get $800,000, $1 million in grants, but we'll have to come up with 11% of local match, what they call, and we typically use Measure C for those funds. Because $650,000 sounds like a lot, but when you get $1 million project, it's $100,000 just for that project. But then we also have to focus on local maintenance because a lot of the federal projects don't allow us to do local streets, like our neighborhood streets that are deteriorating. It's difficult to use that. That's what Measure C is for. Measure C gives you that flexibility to work on those local streets where you see that a lot of our main arterials, our big collector streets, we're using federal and state funds and we're actively going after those grants because those are the streets that qualify for those grants. Where you want to do it on Jefferson or you want to do it on South Coalinga, you can't use federal funds typically to improve those roadways. So that's where Measure C is critical for us to be able to continue to maintain our roads. And it gives us a lot of flexibility. With this new re-up, as it'll eventually go to the voters probably in the next couple of years, our amount will probably close to double based on what they're recommending in terms of the sales tax. So it is critical. I know some people want taxes, some don't, but it will have a major impact on the community if we see Measure C go away. And again, this item on here is basically just acknowledging the allocation for the year. We do this every year. It's a formality in terms of the amount. And for this year, it's $653,000. So, and as you can see in the budgets, as we see, we try to save some of that money up so we can do larger projects down the road too. Hopefully that answers your question.
So what would happen if there was no more Measure C?
We would rely solely on, we have TDA funds, Transportation Development Act funds, which is very minimal, and SB1, which is the replacement of gas tax. But we'd see a drastic drop of $600,000 to $700,000 a year less in what we can actually do locally. We would basically have just enough to really be able to float our federal projects.
Thank you.
I can tell you right now that the Fresno County Rural Transit Authority is actually in the process of rewriting it so that the citizens understand it a little bit better, because it wasn't written quite correctly enough for the citizens to be able to understand what the measure was. So that is in the process, and they'll have it done probably by end of next year, definitely before 2026, because 2027 is when it's done. It has to restart. There won't be any additional taxes. It's just going to extend it out for another 30 years. So, and yeah, we should be, I think each city is actually going to benefit a little bit more off of this next 30 years. Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, or are there any more questions?
So I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the caveat that on item number 3, that before we have the drone just looking in the sky at everybody, that we do, that we have the public involved, and that we come back and we look at a policy, a formal policy, so that the public understands how that's going to work. So if we could do that, I would like to recommend approval of the agenda.
I'll second that. Hold on. So what you're saying is go ahead and approve the item, but not, none of the actions yet. You want to be able to get that modified so we can actually be able to utilize it correctly.
So the only thing that I want to modify is anything new. The use of, for public safety measures, completely fine. That's already been approved and worked forward. The only thing that I want to get approved by the public and get a policy on is community policing with the drone, using it as a form of, hey, there's no crime, but yet we're going to look and see what's going on. That's the only thing I want a policy on. Everything else is completely fine. And yes, I totally support that program. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Aye.
Mayor Horn.
And I vote aye. Okay, our next item is item number 6, ordinance presentation, discussion, and potential action items. We have 4 items on this one. First one is discussion and direction regarding one future vacancy of Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, staff seeking direction from the council related to filling one future vacancy in the Planning Commission. Commissioner Saylor's term will be ending on September 3rd, and Commissioner Saylor has informed staff that he is not interested in seeking reappointment. So in accordance with the municipal code, members of the Planning Commission shall be appointed by the City Council, and any vacancy occurring on the Planning Commission by reason of death, resignation, removal, or disqualification shall promptly be filled by the council for the unexpired term of such member. In this case, it would be a new term. And so there's 3 options the the council has in terms of selecting a commissioner. And typically there's 2 from prior times I've presented. We usually have 2 options. One is that any member of the council can make a motion, recommend somebody, and vote on it, and vote accordingly. And then also, if the members of the council do not have any immediate recommendations to directly appoint, you can direct the city clerk to advertise the planning commissioner position, and then staff would bring back a list of applicants. The additional item that I added was that the council may appoint from a list of applicants who submitted applications during the last solicitation, which was only a few months ago. And so basically that's an option the council has as well if you'd like. And I think both of the applicants that were here submitted previously are in the audience. So with that, I'll leave it up to the council and the mayor to decide what you guys would like to do for that appointment.
Do we want to vote on this, or what do you guys want to do? Or would you guys like to listen to them? Ask them some questions. Because I personally think we should go with the one that was the runner-up on the last round, because he was willing to give up the seat, and he might be willing to take the seat again.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So with that being said, I nominate Rocco.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
I vote aye.
Congratulations. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, discussion, direction, and potential action regarding filing remaining vacant appointment for District 1 of the City of Coalinga Public Safety, City Beautification, Code Enforcement, Animal Control, Transparency, and Accountability Committee. Marissa.
Thank you. So item 2 and 3 sort of go hand in hand if you'd like to discuss them together. We need one more appointment for District 1 on the committee and then 2 for District 3. We still have no applicants for District 3, and so at the last meeting, Councilman Vosberg had asked for an item to consider applicants from another district to represent District 3. So we do have applications on file for 3 in District 1, which is Mary Jones, Taylor Monroy Cisneros, and Rocco, who's also in the audience. And then, in addition to the applications we received, Don Kaikina and Scott Netherton had stated that they'd be interested in serving on those committees. So from there, if you would like to appoint 1 to District 1 and 2 to District 3, then that would fill all of the seats on that committee.
Hey, Nathan, that's your area.
We're talking about District 1 first.
There's a large void in District 3, so just saying.
I'd like to make a suggestion, and you guys probably agree with it. We have 3 applicants, and we have 3 open spaces. I'd like to suggest just using those 3 that have applied and filling the gaps for District 1 and 3, so that way we can actually get started with these committees.
So we need to know which one of the 3 would represent District 1, and then which 2 would be invited to represent District 3.
I'd be happy to represent anyone.
How about, Mary, would you be willing for District 3?
I don't even know which one is that Nathan?
Vosberg's, yes.
It's equal. I will. Of course. Sorry, I was being goofy.
And Rocco's here also.
And, yeah, and Rocco. So what would you prefer, 1 or 3?
3 is fine.
Okay. What about you, Rocco?
For me, it makes no difference. I think we're all on there for the same reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know I'm with people all over, so it doesn't.
Okay. Then maybe Justin and Rocco, Mary and Taylor. We have Mary and Taylor on District 3, and Rocco and our previous applicant on District 1. Does that sound okay? We need to, I'll make a
So
motion.
So Justin Milligan is already representing District 1.
Yes.
So his item was to have Justin and Rocco represent District 1, and then Mary Jones and Taylor would represent District 3. That was his motion, if someone wants to second it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
I vote aye.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Discussion, direction, and potential action regarding filing remaining vacant appointments. Oh, that's the same one. So we'll go on to 4. Excuse me. Okay, item number 4, City Council authorizing the Assistant City Manager the authority to approve change order number 1 for unforeseen sewer lateral repairs as a part of East Pleasant Street water line project currently under construction.
I'll make this brief. It was originally supposed to be on consent calendar, but there's been some changes since the writing of the staff report. So this is related to the project, the water line replacement on East Pleasant Street. The contractor has run into issues with the sewer laterals as they're working on the water line, and they're finding that the sewer lines are basically crumbling as they're basically hand digging around these as they're bringing the water lines in, the laterals too, which the laterals are from the main to the house. And so what's happening is that we have about, initially, there was about, how many were there before? I have the number, I'm sorry, 23 potential conflicts that we assumed based on where cleanouts were, because some of them are in the alley, some of them are in the front. And so we're come to find out in the last, like probably today, that there's about 33 potentials, and it's costing about $3,400 per lateral to repair as they go through the project. And it goes far well beyond the scope and the cost and the change order authority based on the contingencies that were offered on the original award at council before it started. And so staff is recommending updating the request to increase project contingency. So the contingency plus this additional, originally was $78,000 for the additional work that's going to need to be done on all these potential laterals. Since then, it's gone from obviously 23 to 33. And so the number's gone from 78 to 112,000 roughly. And so staff's just requesting the authority to authorize change orders up to that amount in order to ensure that the project continues to move forward. And so on a side note, included in this is basically the city engineer is currently working on a design project for the replacement of the sewer line and the laterals, and then the city, based on cost estimates and use of probably Measure C money, to pave East Pleasant Street for the full stretch. So that'll be cost shared between the water fund, the sewer fund, and the street fund. All this additional cost is up to $112,000 is essentially going to be paid through the sewer fund, which has adequate cash to cover a project like this. And so I just wanted to make sure the council was aware and request the authority to be able to authorize those change orders as they come. It may be 23, but based on what they're finding, there's more in the street than they thought. And so if they're abandoned, it's a lot less work, but we need to cap them off. But they're not being fully repaired, but there are several that have to be repaired, and they're hand digging these because it's literally crumbling. So in order for us to continue the project, we're just requesting that additional dollar amount for the authority to authorize those change orders.
And that's for the 23 or all 33 just
It would be-
possibilities?
Yeah, so originally it was 23 at $78,000 total. That was the estimate. Now we're at 33 at 112,000.
Okay, and this isn't impacting the general fund
Nope.
whatsoever, correct?
It'll be
Okay.
completely paid out of the sewer fund.
Okay.
And it's piggybacking another project, so it's saving us money down the road.
Kind of. Because we're doing repairs,
Right.
but once we replace the sewer line, those laterals all are going to have to be replaced. But I don't think, but it would be worse if we didn't do this. And it's something we kind of have to do. And as you know, we have the camera crew that's been going around town, video cameraing all the sewer lines. And I think you guys approved a sewer line replacement on Grant Street, behind Grant Street. There are some that have been notified to us that are in really bad shape that need to be replaced immediately. All the rest of the report, which we'll bring back to the council, that will be in one big grant application to the state to replace all the deteriorating sewer lines in the entire city. So, but these are ones that need to be done right away. So
What are these old sewer lines made out of?
clay.
They're all the red clay pipe?
Yep.
Yeah.
So do we have existing funds to cover this? And is this something?
Yeah, it's not budgeted, but we do have this, the sewer fund has a very healthy cash balance to cover these capital expenses.
So this isn't something that's going to be like, first off, let me just say, this has to be done. This has to be done. So let's not take my question out of context. But this isn't something that's going to raise our rates down the line, is it?
Not expected to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion? I'll motion to approve. We have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
How would I?
Okay, our next item is announcements. City manager.
Thank you. So I have received a few questions from community members wanting to know if Tractor Supply is still planning to occupy part of the old Kmart property, and they are still moving forward with that project. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. There are no anticipated delays, so it's still moving forward on schedule. We did have National Night Out on Tuesday, August 1st, and we were able to hand out 500 sets of school supplies to Coalinga students that evening, and an additional 36 backpacks, which still was not enough because we had more students show up than we had supplies for, so our goal for next year is 600. And then with National Night Out, it is really a team effort. It takes every city department to come together to put that event together. But in addition to that, I also want to thank Scott because I was out for a while and he really helped me get vendors to the event and reached out to a lot of chamber members to make sure that we had enough vendors there at the event. So I just wanted to publicly thank him for that.
Council?
I just wanted to formally welcome Councilman Schindler. I missed his first meeting, which, I rarely miss meetings, and I could not get the hotel that I was at to take a picture of the agenda, so that's why I wasn't here. But I want to say welcome. You've already hit the ground running, and you're already doing great things. And I like your tie. And then I also want to thank.
Good for a picture, but you don't have to pose. Just looking for it.
All right. So I also want to thank the Public Works people that are going around cutting trees, trimming the grass, making things look nice. I don't know if this is the correct forum, but the work that Caltrans did and is doing is swift, it's quick, it's efficient. I have gotten lots of people that thought that project was just totally going to tie up our area for a long time, and then come to me and said, wow, that's amazing. It looks like the road's already been here, and so I just want to give them a shout out for that. And I just want to thank the mayor for his work at Council of Government and all this stuff you're doing over there. Thank you.
You forgot one thing about the Elm Street. It's actually flat. Just so everybody knows, it's nice and smooth. Other than that, I have no announcements at this time. Are there any future agenda items?
Well, I'd like just to make an announcement for everybody. Coalinga football is about to start. It's going to be an exciting year. We're playing mostly Division II schools. A lot of them are going to be coming home, like Justin Garza. They play Central, San Joaquin Memorial. They'll be coming into town. Washington Union, Carruthers. This is going to be a very exciting year. Get your tickets soon because they're going to go by quick. This Friday we have our first orange and black scrimmage against each other, and until the following week it's just football, and it's great to see all these kids. Ourselves, we got 50 on our JV, which is amazing, and to all the coaches, to the staff for the National Night Out, to the police department, fire department. I'm glad that everybody's coming together. I'm glad to see the city looking great. We had a representative, assemblywoman. She texted me and she said she loves the city. It looks beautiful. And she said she was happy to see our representative Tabor and our staff doing this great job, that she said she could just walk in our town, like she felt like just walking in our town, and she's safe. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. I got one on Forest Court. There's a piece of slab popping up, and at night you can't see it. So I don't know. We could shave it down, right there on Glen and Forest Court, which, yeah. So see if we could shave it down.
Okay, our next one is closed session. We have one item. With that being said, let's see. The next meeting is Our next meeting will be August 17th, 6 o'clock here. Meeting adjourned.